I didn't know it then, but the last time I saw my mother smile like that, really smile, was on a rainy weekend in 1989. We'd rented a crumbling little cottage by a lake in the Catskills. I was 6. Brianna was still in diapers. Mom had taken her hair out of its bun, let it go soft around her shoulders, and she laughed when Dad burned the sausages. It was the only time I remember her looking weightless. That memory stayed with me. Not as a grand ambition, but as something quieter, like a promise I made to no one. Years later, when I had the chance, I bought land on that same lake. I designed a home with wide windows, wood beams, and a wraparound porch so you could hear the water at night. I didn't tell anyone this, but I'd built it with her in mind. A place she could retire to, a place where she might let her shoulders down again. My name is Helen Whitman. I'm 42 years old. I run a boutique software firm I started in my early 30s after leaving a corporate job that never quite let me be a person. I'm not married, no kids. I've been called driven cold efficient sometimes in the same breath, but I pay for my parents' dental. I send gifts on time, and for 3 years I helped cover Brianna's student loans without telling her. Brianna Bree, to everyone but me, is 10 years younger. Blonde, lively, good with people. She always seemed to know how to show up at the right moment with a smile or a joke. She didn't stay long in any job, but people forgave her for that. She's just finding her path, Mom used to say. I'd found mine early. No one ever called me brave for it. Our parents, Frank and Linda, worked long hours in their hardware store when we were growing up. They were decent, tired people. They never missed a tax payment, but they missed a lot of dinners. I learned early how to keep the house running. Bree learned how to be liked. I hadn't seen them much over the past year. Work kept me in Seattle, and I was cautious after the pandemic, especially around Mom, who'd had a bout of pneumonia in 2021. Still, I sent regular updates. I invited them to the lake house for weekends. They always said maybe next month. I assumed they were waiting for a quieter season. The lake house wasn't just real estate to me. It was the one thing I'd built that wasn't about strategy or scaling. It was a memory remade into wood and stone. And no matter how far I'd drifted from the rest of the family, I held on to this belief that when the time came, I'd hand my mother the keys and she'd say, "You remembered." That was the shape of the story in my head. But stories don't always get told by the people who write them. It was a Sunday morning in late April. I had just poured a second cup of coffee and sat down to review some numbers for a client. My phone buzzed on the counter. A Facebook notification Brianna had tagged our mother in a photo album. The cover read, "Surprising Mom at the most beautiful place to celebrate 70 incredible years," and below it, "Couldn't have asked for a better day with the people who love her most." I opened the album slowly. My thumb hovered over the screen longer than it needed to. The first image loaded Mom in a pale blue dress, caught mid-laugh as she leaned over a cake with pink roses. She was sitting in the wicker chair from my sunroom, the one I'd driven 3 hours to pick up because it reminded me of her. In the next photo, the camera pulled back. I saw the full porch mine strung with fairy lights and paper lanterns. Bree stood behind Mom, hands on her shoulders, grinning like a girl who'd just solved Christmas. A musician played cello by the railing. The lake shimmered in the background. Every angle screamed the house I built. The cedar beams, the long oak table, the quartz countertops I'd debated for weeks. All of it. But not a single part of me was there. I kept scrolling. Cousins, neighbors, some of Bree's college friends I hadn't seen since her 3rd graduation party. Mr. Becker still in his fishing vest, standing by the fireplace I'd custom designed. Toasts were raised, plates were cleared, candles were lit. I wasn't mentioned, not once, not in the captions, not in the tags. I called Bree. No answer. 10 minutes later, a text arrived. "Oh, hey, yeah, kinda last minute. Didn't think you'd be in town. Mom really needed a lift." It turned out so sweet I stared at the screen until the letters started to blur. Then I called my mother. She answered quickly. "Helen. So good to hear your voice. You had your birthday at the lake house," I said. A pause. "Oh, yes." "Bree set it all up. She handled everything. You knew and you didn't think to tell me." "Well, we figured you were working and Bree said it was short notice." Honestly, it was just a little thing. 40 people at a catered party is not a little thing, Mom. Well, it wasn't about the size. It was about the feeling. Bree made it feel special. It was my house. Another pause. Longer. Well, you're not there that often, sweetheart. And Bree did all the coordinating. I just showed up and smiled. I sat with that. Then she added almost cheerfully, "You know how you don't really care for big crowds. I care when I'm erased from the picture." Oh, Helen, don't be dramatic. It was just a party. That evening, I opened a bottle of wine I'd bought on a trip to Florence. I'd been saving it for this exact day for a toast with Mom. Instead, I sat by myself on the back deck watching the bay turn silver in the twilight. I drank 2 glasses, then poured the rest down the drain. Later that night, Bree posted more photos. In one of them, Mom held a shawl I had sent her last Christmas. The caption read, "She's never felt more loved." I didn't respond to Bree's texts after that night. There didn't seem to be a sentence I could write that wouldn't sound either small or cruel. Instead, I pulled out an old notebook from the kitchen drawer. The kind I used in college, lined pages, no flair. I opened to the first blank space and started listing what I remembered. The flu winter of 1996. I was 13. Mom and Dad had both caught it at once. I made soup, ran laundry, called in sick for Dad. Bree was 3. She kept crying for someone to read to her, so I taped my voice on a cassette and left it by her bed. In 2008, when Bree missed a final and nearly lost her scholarship, I drove 6 hours overnight to talk to the dean. She passed. She never asked how it happened. I never told her. In 2015, when Dad's store almost closed, I wired money into their account. Mom thought it was a tax refund. Dad said it was luck. They didn't ask where it came from. I wrote down every quiet thing I'd done, and then I stopped. Not because I ran out, but because I realized how many of them were never meant to be seen. Not really. That was the problem. I had spent so long believing the right thing didn't need an audience. That belief didn't hold up anymore. Bree wasn't evil. She was just fluent in visibility. She understood how to move through the world in a way that gathered attention like pollen. She gave hugs in front of cameras. She wrote handwritten notes and left them on pillows. She remembered birthdays and made everything sparkle. I worked behind walls. A week after the party, I called the property manager for the lake house. I told her to schedule a deep clean and send me the report. She hesitated. "I thought you were okay with the event," she said. "Bree said it was a family gathering you approved." "She told you that, yes, ma'am." "She said it was all arranged. I wouldn't have allowed a party otherwise." There were about 40 guests, catered food. Someone spilled wine in the sunroom. We tried our best to clean it up. When the photos came through, I studied them like evidence. My pale rug now carried a deep maroon stain barely hidden under the throw blanket. Scratches lined the hallway floor. A chipped corner on the kitchen island I'd commissioned from reclaimed oak. It wasn't just damage. It was permission taken without asking. I invited them to dinner. It wasn't a dramatic call, just a message in our family group chat. "Would love to see you all for dinner next Saturday. I'll bring food. Your place at 6. No one asked why. No one declined. I arrived with a lasagna salad and a bottle of wine no one touched. The house smelled like lemon cleaner. Bree was already there, curled on the couch in leggings and a sweatshirt that said, "Good vibes only." Frank sat in his recliner flipping through the muted TV. Linda was fussing with napkins. No one mentioned the party. We made it through salad before I said, "Can we turn off the TV? I have something I'd like to go over." Frank looked surprised but reached for the remote. The room went quiet. I pulled out my laptop. "I want to show you a few things," I said. First, the photo of the wine stain, then the deep scratches along the hallway floor, the chip in the kitchen island. I clicked slowly, letting each image linger. "These are from the house," I said. "After the party." Bree shifted. "Okay, but it's just a little wear and tear, Helen. It was a celebration." "You didn't ask." She shrugged. "It was Mom's birthday. You were probably working anyway." I didn't answer. Just clicked to the next slide, a screenshot of Bree's Facebook post, the one with the caption about being surrounded by everyone who loved Mom most. Linda set down her fork. "It was a beautiful day," she said quietly. Everyone came together. Bree made it happen. "And you didn't think to invite me?" I said. "We assumed you were busy," Frank offered. "You've been out of town so much lately." "You didn't forget," I said. "You made a decision." Bree crossed her arms. "Oh, come on. You act like this is some grand betrayal. It was a party. We thought it was better not to pressure you. Better for who I don't know, Helen. You always make things complicated. There's always paperwork, a system, a policy. You built this perfect house and then disappeared into work. We filled it for one day. That's all." I looked at her. "You used my silence as permission." The room was still. Frank cleared his throat. "So what now, you want an apology? You want us to pay for a new couch or something?" "Yes," I said. "I do." Bree laughed. "You're seriously invoicing your own family. I'm holding you accountable for the damage. And for using my property without consent. If I'd done this to either of you, I know how it would land." Linda spoke gently. "Honey, this isn't like some corporate thing. It's family." "No," I said. "It's both." They blinked. "I built that house with the idea that one day Mom would live there. I designed every inch of it with her in mind. And then you used it for a party that excluded me. You rewrote the story, and you used my name to do it." Bree opened her mouth, then closed it. I shut the laptop. "You don't have to agree, but you do have to understand this from now on. If you want to use the house, you ask. If you break something, you fix it. If I'm part of this family, I get to be in the room, not just the bank account." No one spoke for a while. The lasagna sat untouched. Outside, a wind chime rattled faintly. Frank finally said, "Maybe we could have handled it differently. But this feels harsh." "So did being erased," I said. I stood, gathered my things, paused in the doorway. "You didn't just forget me. You left me out on purpose. I won't let it happen again." The next morning, I sent an email. It had 3 attachments, a PDF invoice, a property use agreement, and a side-by-side comparison of pre- and post-event photos. The invoice totaled $1,460.84. I itemized the professional cleaning, the upholstery repair, and the flooring touch-ups. No markup. Just the numbers. The second document was a usage policy. Nothing dramatic. 4 bullet points. Written request required 2 weeks in advance. $1,000 refundable damage deposit. Pre- and post-use photo documentation. Signed liability waiver for all guests. I sent it to Bree, Frank, and Linda with a brief note. "Going forward, please use these guidelines if you'd like to access the lake house. As always, I'm happy to share what I've built, but not without respect." An hour later, Bree posted to Instagram. Photo of Mom holding a framed print from the party. Caption: "Some people forget what love looks like when they chase money. We didn't. She didn't tag me. She didn't have to." Frank called me that evening. He didn't sound angry, just tired. "Was all that really necessary? I think so. You're turning this into something it doesn't have to be." "No, Dad. I'm turning it into what it already was." He sighed. "You've always been particular. And you've always let her act like she owned things she didn't pay for." There was a long pause. "I know you've done a lot. I just hate seeing you all this divided." "So did I. Until I realized I was the only one holding the pieces together." Later that night, I got a reply from Bree. Just one line. "You really think this makes you look strong?" I didn't answer. The next morning, I transferred the house's smart lock system to a restricted access profile. I didn't block them. I didn't change the locks. I just made the door ask questions first. It was nearly a month before they visited. Frank had texted first. "We're coming up Saturday if that's okay. No agenda, just us." I said yes, then spent the morning cleaning a house that didn't look messy. They arrived just after noon. Linda brought lemon bars in a plastic container, the same kind she used when I was a kid. Frank carried a folding chair for the porch. I offered coffee. We didn't talk much at first. Linda wandered the house slowly. She paused in the sunroom where the wine stain had been. The fabric looked clean, but I watched her fingers trace the edge of the armrest anyway. "You kept the chimes?" she said softly, nodding toward the porch. "They sound better in the wind than in theory," I replied. We sat. The three of us. The lake was flat and gray that day, the kind of stillness that presses on the ribs. Frank finally broke the silence. I think we got used to you being the one who handled everything. I did handle everything I said, quietly. He nodded. I guess we started believing that meant you didn't need anything in return. Linda looked down at her lap. I didn't know how much it cost you to be so capable. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I reached into the side table drawer and pulled out a photo me at 13 holding a cake I'd made from a box mix my arm around Mom's shoulder. Bree's nowhere in it, just the two of us. Linda took it in her hands. Her face didn't change, but something shifted. I forgot this day, she said. I didn't. We sat in silence again, but it was different now. Not empty, just full of things none of us had words for. As they were leaving, Frank turned at the door. You still want this place to be hers someday? I looked out at the porch. The wind had picked up. The chimes answered for me. Bree never apologized, not in words. But 2 weeks later, a payment arrived through Zelle, $1,460.84. No note, no subject line. Just the exact amount from the invoice. I stared at it for a long time before I accepted. A few days after that, I hosted brunch at the lake house. Nothing grand. Just me, Frank, Linda, and a simple spread of eggs, fruit, and muffins. No candles, no toasts, no hashtags. I set 4 places, but only 3 were filled. The 4th chair stayed empty. I didn't comment on it. Neither did they. It wasn't about punishment. It wasn't a message. It was just space left open for someone who had once decided I didn't belong in my own home. After we cleared the plates, Linda stood by the window. She watched the lake for a while, then said, "It really is beautiful here." I nodded. She turned to me. "You didn't have to invite us." I know. Outside, the wind moved through the trees like it always had. The chimes tapped gently against the porch beam. One note, then another, then silence again. I'm not asking you to take my side. But there are mornings I still remember that photo, the birthday cake, my mother's smile, my house. And my absence. No one crossed my name out. They just never wrote it down. Sometimes what hurts most isn't what's said, it's what's quietly decided without you. No slamming doors, no shouting. Just a seat. You built a room you opened quietly, filled without you. If you've ever been the one who gave quietly, if you've ever found out the family story was told without your name in it, then maybe you know what it's like to be erased with a smile. I'm not asking you to comment or explain. Just this, what's one word you wish they'd said to you? One word you waited for. One word you still hear even in silence. Leave it below. No judgment, no details, just the word.
I sit quietly at my mother's birthday dinner, surrounded by the warm chatter of family celebration. 25 pairs of eyes focus on Mom as she opens gifts, her smile widening with each tissue paper revelation. Dad raises his glass, commanding the room's attention the way he's done at every family gathering for as long as I can remember. To Elaine, he announces, his voice carrying across the long table. 65 years young and still putting up with all of us. Laughter ripples through the room. I join in, lifting my water glass in a practiced motion. This is comfort. This is family. This is where I've always belonged, even when I haven't felt it. Dad's gaze shifts to me. That familiar glint in his eye, the one that always appears right before he makes someone the center of his particular brand of humor. And to Giada, he continues, gesturing toward me with his wine glass. Still fighting the good fight with that, what do you call it again? Oh, the pajama laptop job? Changing the world from your couch, right? My hand tightens around the water glass. My smile freezes in place as laughter erupts around the table. Aunt Carol snorts into her napkin. Uncle Phil shakes his head with that same dismissive chuckle he reserves for stories about his daughter's art degree. My brother Carter catches my eye briefly before looking away, his smile uncomfortable but unwilling to fade. Something shifts inside me, a tectonic plate moving after years of pressure. I see with perfect clarity what I've been trying not to see for months, years. They will never respect my choices. They will never acknowledge my success. The approval I've spent 33 years chasing will always remain just out of reach. The realization doesn't come with panic or heartbreak. Just clarity. Crystal clear understanding that washes over me like cool water. Without a word, I place my napkin beside my plate. I stand, smoothing the front of my dress. Happy birthday, Mom, I say quietly. Then I walk away from the table, from the suddenly stunned silence behind me. 18 months earlier, I sat across from my father in his study, explaining my decision to leave my corporate media role. I need something more meaningful, I told him, outlining my plans for my own brand strategy consultancy. Sounds like a midlife crisis to me, he'd replied, not looking up from his newspaper. Bit early for that, though. The pattern was always the same at family gatherings. Carter's law firm promotions were celebrated with champagne. Lydia's work in hospital administration was doing something that matters. Miles's finance career was building something tangible. But my work? Always the punchline, always the afterthought. How's the little side business? They'd ask, as if I were selling homemade jam at farmers markets, rather than rebuilding struggling companies' market positions. I kept showing up anyway, kept trying to earn a place at the table through quiet determination, through building something meaningful despite their lack of support. The barrage of texts begins before I reach my car. Carter, Dad was just kidding. Don't be so sensitive. Lydia, way to make Mom's birthday about you. Mom, please come back inside, sweetie. Don't ruin the evening. I drive home in silence, my phone buzzing on the passenger seat like an angry wasp. By morning, the messages have escalated to calls. By afternoon, the familiar knock on my apartment door. Mom stands there with Dad looming behind her, Carter hovering uncomfortably in the hallway. This has gone on long enough, Dad announces, already pushing past me into the apartment. You're dragging out the issue, and frankly, it's embarrassing. My hands are steady as I open the door wider, a deliberate action that feels nothing like the accommodation it resembles. You've never respected my work, I say, my voice quiet but firm. Not once in 18 months, not once in my entire life. I'd like you to leave now. Mom blinks rapidly, her mouth opening in protest. Dad's face reddens. Now listen here. Please leave, I repeat. They've always operated on a clear hierarchy. Dad leads, Mom enables, siblings follow the established pattern. For 33 years, I've been a reliable part of that machinery, the quiet one, the accommodating one, the one who maintains the peace. Now I'm risking my place in the family structure, watching their faces shift between shock and anger as they process this unexpected malfunction in the system. The emotional toll of years spent trying to fit their mold weighs on me as I close the door behind them. The steady corporate job I hated, showing up at every event with the right smile in place, ignoring every snide remark and dismissive joke. For the first time in my adult life, silence was my answer, and it spoke volumes. The ivory envelope sits on my kitchen counter like a landmine. Gold-embossed lettering announces Miles and Sophia's engagement celebration, the date highlighted in elegant calligraphy. 6 weeks have passed since I walked out of Mom's birthday dinner, and this invitation arrives without a hint of reconciliation, just my name and address, as if nothing happened. I trace my finger over the RSVP card. No, we miss you, or let's talk. Just a presumption I'll attend, wearing the appropriate smile and convenient amnesia about their behavior. Giada, we hope you can make it. Reads Miles's handwritten note at the bottom. Hope, not want or need. Just hope, conditional and distant. My phone buzzes with a text from Carter. You get the invite? Miles wants to know if you're coming. No mention of the standoff, the things said and unsaid. Just business as usual, in the Moretti family sweep conflicts under the rug until the lumps become too large to ignore. I open Instagram, my thumb scrolling almost involuntarily. Mom's page displays a photo from last weekend, a family dinner I wasn't invited to. Dad, Carter, Lydia, Miles, and his fiancée Sophia gathered around a table laden with pasta and wine. The comments section reveals the punchline. Thankfully, no sensitive souls at this table tonight, Dad commented. 17 likes, including ones from my siblings. My stomach tightens as I scroll through more posts. Photos of family outings, inside jokes, celebrations continuing without pause. In their narrative, I'm simply the difficult daughter throwing a tantrum, expected to get over it and return to my assigned role. The realization lands like concrete in my chest. They see my absence as temporary, my boundaries as negotiable, my hurt as inconvenient. The laptop chimes with an incoming video call. Mom's name flashes on the screen, but the thumbnail shows everyone gathered in their living room. A family intervention disguised as reconciliation. Giada, honey, we've been trying to reach you. Mom's voice carries that familiar sing-song quality that emerges when she's trying to smooth over conflict. Dad leans into frame. Turn your camera on. We need to talk like adults. I click the camera icon, sitting straighter, an old reflex when facing family judgment. We need to clear the air before Miles's engagement party, Mom says, her smile strained at the edges. The whole family will be there. I haven't decided if I'm attending, I say. 5 faces register identical expressions of shock. Even through the screen, I feel the weight of their collective disapproval. What do you mean you haven't decided? Miles pushes forward. It's my engagement party. I understand that, I begin, but Carter cuts me off. This is exactly why we have to walk on eggshells around you. Everything becomes a federal case. I didn't realize respecting my work was walking on eggshells. Lydia sighs dramatically. Have you considered talking to someone? Professionally? You've always been sensitive, but this is extreme even for you. Sensitive. The word hangs there, stripped of context, reframed as weakness rather than legitimate response to years of dismissal. You can't miss this, Giada, Miles says, leaning toward the camera. It would completely ruin my special day if my own sister wasn't there. That's not my intention. Dad's voice overrides mine, louder and final. You've always been the difficult one, Giada. Always trying to be different instead of being part of this family. The accusation lands with practiced precision. Different, difficult. The labels they've assigned me since childhood, whenever I failed to conform. If you miss this party, Mom adds softly, delivering the threat with gentle hands, it will permanently damage your relationship with Miles. Is that what you want? The subtext is clear. Conform or be cast out. Play your part or lose your place. The family system tolerates no defectors. Think about what this means, Lydia continues. All the extended family will be there. What will everyone think if you're the only one missing? The practical consequences unfold before me, cousins, aunts, and uncles hearing only their version of events. Whispers of, what happened to Giada? With answers shaped by my absence. We're trying to help you, Carter says. Don't you see that? The call ends 30 minutes later. I sit alone in my apartment, tears falling freely as the weight of their expectations presses down. The choice before me feels impossible. Maintain my dignity or maintain my family ties. Neither option promises peace. My laptop pings with a new email. A client I worked with last quarter, a small publishing house on the brink of closure before my rebrand strategy. Giada, we've just closed our most successful quarter in 5 years. The board specifically mentioned you as the quiet force behind our company's transformation. Thought you should know. I stare at the message, warmth spreading through my chest. Someone sees the value in my work. Someone recognizes what I've built. As I sit reading that email, I wonder, should I attend the engagement party and maintain peace? Or should I finally show my family what I've built on my own terms? Sometimes silence speaks volumes, but would missing my brother's celebration be a statement or a surrender? My family wants me there as the version of myself they've created, not the woman I've become. The ivory invitation waits on my counter, demanding an answer. The longer I look at it, the more clearly I see the question isn't whether I'll attend Miles's party, it's whether I'll continue attending the performance of family at the expense of my truth. 4 days later, I woke to the relentless ping of my phone. 3 new notifications, all from Dad's Facebook. The latest post shows the family gathered around a bonfire at Uncle Phil's lake house, everyone smiling with wine glasses raised. The caption reads, "Family always shows up for each other, no matter what." 27 likes, 14 comments, most variations of beautiful family, and so true. I set my phone face down on the nightstand, breathing through the tightness in my chest. Mom calls while I'm reviewing client analytics. I almost let it go to voicemail, but slide my thumb across the screen at the last moment. Miles is so disappointed you haven't RSVP'd yet, she says instead of hello. He specifically asked me to check if you're coming. I haven't decided, I answer, my voice steadier than I feel. What's there to decide? It's your brother's engagement party. I hear the kitchen faucet running in the background, the familiar clink of dishes being rinsed. Mom never calls without multitasking. I have a client meeting that weekend. Her sigh carries decades of practiced disappointment. You know they scheduled the pre-engagement dinner at our house for Thursday. Everyone will be there. Thursday. My meeting with Portland National Bank, my largest potential client to date. The coincidence feels too perfect to be accidental. After we hang up, Aunt Carol texts, "Why are you causing drama before Miles's big day?" Then Uncle Phil. Then my cousin Stephanie. The family phone tree activated, branches heavy with judgment. At 2 a.m., I'm still at my desk, sleep a distant memory. The proposal for Portland National glows on my screen, every slide scrutinized a dozen times. My back aches from hunching over my laptop for 14 hours straight. The clock in the corner of my screen seems to mock my dedication or desperation. This is the third night this week I've worked until dawn. Not because the projects demand it, but because proving my business isn't a hobby has become an obsession. The irony doesn't escape me, working myself to exhaustion to prove something to people who won't believe it anyway. Before every family call, the anxiety starts as a flutter in my stomach and climbs to my chest, making my hands shake and my thoughts scatter. I've developed rituals to counter it: deep breaths, shoulder rolls, rehearsed responses to potential criticisms. No, this isn't just a phase. Yes, I have actual clients. No, I don't regret leaving my corporate job. Words practiced in the shower, in front of mirrors, while driving ammunition stockpiled for battles I always lose anyway. The holidays are worst. Last Christmas, I stayed home to finalize a campaign launch, watching my family's celebration unfold through Instagram stories. Mom in her red apron, Dad carving the turkey. The empty chair at the table nobody mentioned. A knock at my door startles me from my thoughts. It's nearly 6 in the evening, and I haven't left my apartment all day. I peer through the peephole to find Rebecca, my neighbor, holding something wrapped in a kitchen towel. "You looked like you could use something warm," she says when I open the door, handing me a loaf of bread still radiating heat. Sometimes the family we choose matters more than the one we're born into. The simple kindness catches me off guard. I invite her in for coffee, the first human interaction I've had in days that doesn't involve client meetings or family tension. 3 days later, I'm reviewing architectural plans for my studio space in the Arts District when Carter calls. I know why before I answer. "So are you coming to the engagement party or what?" he asks, his lawyer voice in full effect. Mom's about to lose it over the RSVP list. I look down at the plans spread across my coffee table, the culmination of 18 months of work, the physical manifestation of everything I've built. I'm investing in myself that weekend. I say simply, what could possibly be more important than family? The disbelief in his voice is palpable. My fingers trace the outline of what will become my conference room. For once, I'm putting myself first. I'm investing $24,000 in a physical studio space. That's my priority now. The silence stretches between us, heavy with surprise. When Carter finally speaks, his voice has hardened. "Mom and Dad were right. You really have changed." I feel an unexpected smile form. "Yes," I reply. "That's the point." There. After the call ends, I text Jenna and Mark, former colleagues who left the corporate world before I did. Within minutes, they've both offered to help with the studio renovation. "We'll bring paintbrushes this weekend," Jenna writes, "and wine, lots of wine." Over the next 2 weeks, the empty space begins to transform. The owners of the coffee shop downstairs bring up espressos and welcome cards. The vintage clothing boutique owner across the hall stops by with a hand-selected scarf to match your new sign. The florist from the corner delivers an arrangement with a note that reads, "To new beginnings." These people have no obligation to me, no shared DNA or holiday traditions, yet they celebrate my vision without question, without diminishment. At my dining room table, I finalize the guest list for my studio launch. Clients who've trusted me with their brands, collaborators who've shared their expertise, industry friends who've offered connections and advice when my family offered only doubts. I schedule the launch for Saturday, the 12th of June, the same day as Miles's engagement party. My cursor hovers over the Send Invitations button, my heart racing with the magnitude of my choice. This isn't just about missing a party or opening a studio. It's about declaring once and for all which life I'm choosing. I take a deep breath and click Send. The morning light streams through the tall windows of my empty studio space, casting geometric patterns across the polished concrete floor. I check my watch, 6:17 a.m. I've been here since 4, methodically transforming this blank canvas into something real. I slide the heavy walnut desk into position, my fingers tracing its smooth edges. Each piece of furniture I've selected carries intention. The custom ergonomic chairs in soft charcoal fabric, the glass partitions that create distinct work areas while maintaining openness, the understated signage with my company name etched in a clean, confident font. "Perfect alignment," I whisper, stepping back to assess the desk's position relative to the windows. The morning light will hit it just right, during client meetings professional, without being intimidating. I spend the next hour arranging client portfolios on the central table, each leather-bound folder containing evidence of businesses transformed, strategies implemented, success measured in real numbers. My fingers linger on the Peterson outdoor gear case study, my first major client after leaving the corporate world. The one my father had called a small-time operation not worth the effort. When the last portfolio is placed, I stand in the center of the room and take it all in. The space breathes with possibility, professional, elegant, undeniably successful. For the first time since walking out of my mother's birthday dinner, I feel something close to peace. So this is why you're missing Miles's party? For work? I turn to find Lydia standing in the doorway, her expression hovering between annoyance and reluctant admiration. I hadn't invited family, yet here she is in her designer blazer and perfect makeup, uninvited and unexpected. The launch has been planned for months. I answer simply, watching her eyes travel around the space, tallying its worth. Miles is devastated, you know. An engagement only happens once. Her voice carries the practiced guilt I've heard all my life. But something's different now, we're on my territory. Not gathered around our parents' dining table. Before I can respond, Jake Peterson himself approaches from the refreshment table, champagne flute in hand. Giada, I was just telling the Chronicle reporter how your rebranding strategy boosted our Q2 sales by 38%. He gestures toward a woman taking notes near the window. This genius saved our family business after 30 years of steady decline. 2 other clients join the conversation, each adding their own testimony. She completely rebuilt our digital presence. The quiet force behind our turnaround. Portland's best-kept secret. Lydia's expression shifts almost imperceptibly. Her mouth opens slightly, then closes. For the first time in our adult lives, I watch my sister recognize something in me she hadn't seen before. I had no idea, she says quietly, her phone already out, snapping pictures of the space. Does Mom know what you've built here? When Lydia took photos to send to our family, I hesitated to ask her to stop. Would confronting her create more drama, or would allowing those pictures to speak for themselves finally show my family what I'd accomplished? The launch event builds momentum around me. Clients mingle with local business owners, sharing stories of transformation. The reporter from the Portland Business Chronicle scribbles in her notebook, occasionally glancing up to ask follow-up questions about what she calls the quiet builder of Portland's success. I hope you don't mind the ambush, Rebecca says, appearing at my elbow with a small group of neighbors in tow. We wanted to surprise you. Cause it. My neighbor has brought half our building, the retired teacher from 4B, the young couple from across the hall, even the cantankerous Mr. Wilson from the first floor. They're all here, filling my professional space with the warmth of community I never found at family gatherings. I'm glad you came, I tell her, meaning it more deeply than she knows. The afternoon unfolds like a dream, champagne glasses clinking, business cards exchanged, conversations flowing around me as I stand in the center of what I've created. This isn't just a business milestone, it's the celebration of a new life built on my own terms. Later, I catch Lydia texting rapidly in the corner, her thumbs flying across her screen. Within minutes, my phone buzzes with notifications from the family group chat. Giada went all out but didn't invite any of us. Lydia's message reads beneath photos of my studio. The responses flood in immediately. Dad, choosing work over family again. Typical. Mom, the space looks lovely, sweetie. Wish we could have been there. Carter, that's actually really impressive. Nice work, G. Miles, looks really professional. Sorry I missed it. Dad again. Miles's engagement should have been the priority. Some things matter more than work. The mixed messages continue, contradictions filling my screen, criticism of my priorities alongside reluctant admiration for what I've built. For the first time, I see cracks forming in their united front. My phone buzzes with a private text from Miles. The studio looks really professional. Congrats. I slide the phone back into my pocket without responding and rejoin my guests. The validation I spent years seeking from my family feels strangely hollow compared to the reality I've built around me. Clients who value my work, neighbors who show up unasked, a reporter who sees my success as worthy of coverage. The studio launch isn't just a business milestone. It's the first day of the rest of my life. A day later, my phone buzzes with the 7th text message in an hour. I turn it face down on my desk, refusing to let the steady stream of family communications distract me from organizing client files. The launch event was a success beyond my expectations, but apparently my absence from Miles's engagement party has triggered a family crisis. When I finally check my messages during lunch, they form a predictable pattern of guilt and manipulation. Martin, you had an event last night. Would have been nice to invite family. I breathe slowly through my nose, recognizing the passive-aggressive tactic. My father knows exactly why I didn't invite them, the same reason he never invited me to his retirement celebrations after I left the corporate world. Next comes Mom's voicemail, her voice wavering between hurt and accusation. Miles was hurt you chose a work party over family. We raised you better than this, Giada. The most telling messages come from my siblings. Their nearly identical wording reveals the family coordination happening behind the scenes. Carter, you need to apologize to Miles. He's really upset. Lydia, an apology would go a long way right now. Miles, I expected more from you. A simple apology is all it would take. The final blow arrives just before I close my office for the evening. Dad's ultimatum wrapped in family concern. Your continued disrespect may result in us having to exclude you from future gatherings until you show proper remorse. This isn't what families do to each other. I place my phone in my desk drawer without responding and drive home with the windows down, letting the air clear my thoughts. Morning light streams through my apartment windows as I sip coffee and scroll through local news on my tablet the next day. A headline catches my eye. Portland's quiet powerhouse, how Giada Moretti is transforming local businesses. The article features photos from the launch, quotes from clients, and a detailed profile of my consulting approach. My phone chimes with notifications, a flood of new inquiries from potential clients who read the feature. 3 requests for consultations, 2 partnership proposals, and an invitation to speak at a local business leadership forum next month. Walking into my studio feels different today. My heels click with purpose against the hardwood floors. The smell of fresh paint mingles with coffee as my first client arrives for a morning meeting. They bring a colleague interested in our services, and I guide them through a presentation with steady hands and clear voice. During a brief break, I pull up the family group chat on my phone. Rather than crafting the apologetic explanation they're waiting for, I simply paste the link to the article with no comment. Then I silence notifications and return to my clients. The silence that was once my refuge from confrontation has transformed into something else entirely. A boundary, a statement, a choice. 2 months later, I stand backstage at the Portland Business Leadership Forum, reviewing my notes for the panel discussion. The topic: Building Success Without Traditional Support Systems. My segment focuses on creating professional momentum when family validation isn't available, a subject I know intimately. As I step onto the stage, scanning the audience out of habit, I freeze momentarily. 6 rows back sits my father, his posture stiff and expression unreadable. Our eyes meet briefly before I look away, my heart hammering against my ribs. I have no idea why he's here, or who connected him to this event. The moderator introduces me, and muscle memory carries me forward. I speak clearly about strategic planning, client relationships, and building community connections when family resources aren't available. The questions flow naturally, and I find myself relaxing despite my father's presence. I neither acknowledge nor ignore him, simply continuing as planned. When asked about overcoming obstacles, I lean slightly forward in my chair. The hardest part wasn't creating the business, I say. It was accepting that not everyone who should support you will. Sometimes success isn't loud. It doesn't need validation or permission. It just needs to matter to you. Applause follows as the panel concludes. Attendees cluster around speakers, exchanging business cards and conversations. I'm discussing a potential collaboration when I sense someone approaching from behind. That was quite impressive, my father says, his voice carrying that familiar tone of calculated casualness. You've built something real here. I turn slowly. Martin stands with his hands in his pockets, waiting for my gratitude at his acknowledgement. Thank you for coming, I say, my voice steady. I'm not your enemy, Giada. He extends his hand as if offering peace. Something shifts in me, not the volcanic anger I once feared, but something cooler and more certain. You're not my enemy. I agree, not taking his hand, but you've chosen your pride over respecting me. His hand drops, his expression darkening with familiar disapproval. Before he can respond, I nod politely and walk away, leaving him standing alone exactly as I once stood at so many family gatherings. Over the next week, the family grapevine buzzes with news of our encounter. Aunt Carol calls to tell me I've broken your father's heart, while Uncle Phil surprisingly emails that he always knew you had it in you. The family splits along unexpected lines, some condemning my reader. Disrespect, others quietly expressing admiration for my independence. When I return from the studio on Friday evening, a cream-colored envelope waits in my mailbox. Inside is an invitation to Thanksgiving at my parents' house, still 3 months away. What catches my attention is the handwritten note in my mother's elegant script along the margin. "We miss you." I place the invitation on my kitchen counter and stand looking at it for a long moment, wondering what kind of peace it offers and what it might cost. Light streams through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my expanded studio space, washing over the walnut conference table where my team sits. 3 months ago, this space was half the size. Now, with the adjoining unit incorporated, Patterson and Moretti Brand Consulting occupies the entire corner of the Portland Arts District building. The Westbrook campaign exceeded their quarterly targets by 23%, I say, clicking to the next slide. Their social engagement has doubled since implementing our strategy. Heads nod appreciatively around the table. 5 consultants, all reporting to me. A reality I sometimes still can't believe. Giada, Bloomberg Business just ran that feature on women-owned consultancies in the Pacific Northwest. Kendra says, sliding her tablet toward me. "You're highlighted in the sidebar as Portland's quiet powerhouse." I smile, remembering how I once rehearsed responses to my family's cutting remarks in bathroom mirrors. Now, my name appears in business journals, and local entrepreneurs seek me out at networking events. The revenue reports show a 40% increase since last quarter. Numbers don't lie, unlike family platitudes. "Let's wrap for today," I say, standing. "Great work, everyone." As they file out, I notice the ease in my shoulders that was never present at family gatherings. The constant tension, the need to defend, explain, justify has finally lifted. Later that evening, my dining room fills with laughter. 8 people gather around my table, colleagues, neighbors, local business owners who've become friends. Rebecca places a steaming dish of paella at the center. "To the woman who convinced me to invest in social commerce," Daniel raises his glass. "My shop would still be struggling without you." The pajama strategist strikes again. Jokes Amy, my new business partner. Unlike my father's barbs, her teasing holds genuine affection. Instead of shrinking away, I laugh and raise my glass. "Just wait until you see what I can do in proper clothes." The room erupts in laughter. Looking around at these faces, people who value my insights, who seek my counsel, I realize I've found something my family never gave me: recognition without conditions. "Remember when you were afraid to tell people what you did for a living?" Rebecca whispers as she helps clear plates. I nod, recalling how I'd mumble vague descriptions of my work, trained by years of dismissal to expect the same from everyone. The following weekend, a small group gathers in my backyard. Rebecca brings her famous lemon bars. The original supporters who helped paint walls and assemble furniture for my first studio space relax in Adirondack chairs on the lawn. I raise my glass. To creating our own definitions of success and family. Their faces reflect back the truth I've finally embraced, that family isn't just determined by blood but by who celebrates your authentic self. Another Thanksgiving invitation sits on my desk the next morning. My mother's handwriting on the envelope still triggers a phantom anxiety, but it no longer consumes me. The fear of their judgment has diminished with each achievement they can no longer diminish. I've decided to attend, but on my own terms. I'll bring my portfolio, not defensively, not seeking validation, but as a matter of fact. This is who I am. This is what I've built. The lightness I feel is unfamiliar but welcome. I've constructed a life that doesn't require shrinking myself to fit into my family's narrow definition of success. I've stopped waiting for their approval to feel complete. I place the invitation beside my computer and turn at the sound of a gentle knock. My assistant appears in the doorway. "Your 10 o'clock is here," she says. "The CEO from Meridian Technologies." I stand, smoothing the front of my dress, a gesture that once signaled anxiety but now feels like preparation. As I prepared to face my family again, I wondered, is it better to maintain relationships with those who diminish you by setting firm boundaries, or to build a completely new circle that celebrates who you truly are? The hardest part wasn't walking away. That first night, it was deciding if and how to walk back in.